And we're back. And I know it's been a while, but life gets busy, but we're back anyway, right? We have a lot to talk about today. As always, I covered a lot of it in my roundup yesterday, so you can probably go read that and learn a lot of the stuff, but we do have some new stuff for this show. Plus, later on the show, we got Danny Cunningham of The Inside Shot on Substack. He's our resident Cleveland Cavaliers expert, so we're going to talk some Cavs later. But for now, we have the general NBA to talk about, and actually the international NBA, if reports are correct. In 2027, NBA is going to be launching NBA Europe, which I've talked about before. But we know it's 2027 now, and probably October 2027, because FIBA Secretary General Andrius Zaglis, hopefully I didn't butcher that entirely, confirmed as much, stating that they need approvals from the NBA and FIBA's board, but generally October 2027 is the date for when the NBA is going to poach as much talent as possible from the European system. My opinions on that are on a previous piece. You can go back and read it, and maybe I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, NBA is heading to Europe in just about 2 years. But on to the actual NBA, here in the States, guards kind of went off this past week. We've got a whole set of guards, actually. So Jamal Murray looks like Bubble Murray again. He's had 109 points in 110 minutes, so that's 36.3 points per game. And he's doing it on 62, 62, 92 splits, which is stupid and not sustainable at all, but phenomenal. Jalen Brunson, total of 3 games, total of 89 points, 18 assists, 4 turnovers, so 4.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio, 29.7 points per game on 50, 38, 86 shooting splits, plus 60 in 3 games. He's pretty much steering blowouts this past week. The Knicks are good. Knicks have this weird rumor mill swirling around them related to Giannis, which I'll cover a little bit later. But the Knicks are good, man. The East is weak. I mean, times are good. But the East is getting a little bit stronger because we have Jaylen Brown, who he's been phenomenal. He's shooting like 54% from 3 over the past week, and the Celtics are kind of jiving with him. For a long time, I've kind of ripped on Jaylen Brown, similar to Paul Beccaro, where he puts up a lot of points, but I wasn't sure that he could drive a team to win in the way that his teammate could. In Paul Beccaro's case, it's Franz Wagner. In Jaylen Brown's case, it's Tatum, who's been out. But since Tatum's been out, Jaylen Brown's been pretty phenomenal, and he's been contributing and winning. The Celtics are surging right now. So, hey, Jaylen Brown, proving me wrong. What do you know? Austin Reeves, speaking of guards that are proving me wrong, I did not know Austin Reeves had this in him. I think that's been the narrative for the past few weeks, but he is having the most efficient guard season we've ever seen. I don't think that'll sustain, but once again, he's proved me wrong time and time again. But past 3 games, 91 points, 22 assists. That's 30.3 points per game, 7.3 assists per game, 45, 40, 84 shooting splits, doing it in 38 minutes per game. It's amazing that Reeves, when Luka's out, has stepped up. I mean, Luka just had his second child, so, he was out for a bit. Reeves steps up. He plays off of LeBron so well. When Luka and LeBron are both in the lineup, he plays the third option so well, or even the second option now that LeBron's kind of taking a step back. Reeves has created space so much easier this season. He has really opened up his game on the scoring from all 3 levels thing. Like, he was always pretty decent from 3, decent around the rim, but his mid-range game this season has been so good, not only because he's actually making the shots, but because he's taking them at a clip that keeps the defense honest when he punishes closeouts. Yeah, Reeves is phenomenal. Pick and roll play looks much better from him this year, and I think that's part of what happens when you play next to Luka. He kind of learns from him. Him and Luka's bromance is awesome for the media, and I'm sure the media is thrilled that they are both in LA, which thank you, Nico Harrison. Last guard of the week that I want to go through is James Harden. Classic Harden line, 3 games, 26.3 points per game, 49, 35, 84 shooting splits. The 3-point is a little bit down, but also it's like the Clippers are bad, and Harden would have way more assists than just 22 over 3 games, which that's over 7. So like, I think he could probably get, a 22-10 line, sort of thing. 26-10 is what it is. Clippers are bad, but Harden's been phenomenal. And the case with Harden is, what are they going to do with him after this season? Because a lot of teams would probably want Harden for the right price. The problem's the contract, as always. Okay, let's talk about some cold teams, because I just talked about some hot players. Let's talk about some cold teams. The Bulls are not back like I thought they were, which is very unfortunate because they're such a fun team to watch when, they're all cohesive. But 0-3 over the past week, minus 19 in margin. Giddey still looks great, when he's on the floor. I'm not a massive fan of inserting Kobe White back into the lineup. I think that potentially he needs to take a step back and maybe they find a new situation for him. But I'm not really liking how he takes plays a little bit away from Giddey. And Vucevic hasn't been as good the past week. I mean, the Bulls aren't necessarily back like I thought they were, but I'm still excited about their core. I mean, Giddey's been phenomenal, like I said. Matas Buzel's phenomenal, like I said. He had an incredible dunk third night, which if you ever look at the NBA's dunk scores, which are super arbitrary, but he had the highest dunk score of the night. I think it was like 111, which is massive. Love both those guys. Don't love the Bulls right now. Raptors were surging, and now they're 0-3 over the past week, -12 margin, 15-10 on the season. So, I mean, they're still all good, right? Maybe a little bit of regression this week. Dare I say it? The Raptors have kind of surprised people, including myself, and I don't know how sustainable that is, but the Raptors are going to be one to watch for the Giannis sweepstakes potentially, which, once again, we'll get to that in a moment. But I think they're kind of regressing to me a little bit. I think they were way too good for what they actually were. But once again, could be wrong. Scotty Barnes has been phenomenal defensively after, I think it was like 1 or 2 games in. I was like, oh, Scotty Barnes is not performing as defensively staunch as I thought he would. And then now he's putting on a borderline defensive player of the year season. He won't win it, but he's been really good. Pelicans are bad, but Derek Queen is good. So the Pelicans, 0-3 over the past week, 3-22 on the season. Horrendous. But hey, Derek Queen had a 30, 10, and 10 plus, all those. I'm forgetting the exact stat line. But he has been absolutely ridiculous. And if the Pelicans hadn't traded away their 2026 pick to get him, everybody would be celebrating, but it feels like we've kind of dampened him because, they gave up their 2026 pick, which will be going to the Hawks. But Derek Queen's been phenomenal. His defense is actually pretty good off the ball. On-ball defense, still a problem. Same thing with like the Şengün Jokic mold, but he's been rebounding really well, way more physical than I expected him to be this early in his NBA career because that was a problem I had with him in college. He's been a great roll man. He drives in, he kicks, he gets the ball out to the perimeter. He's got good post moves. He looks great. He looks like a cornerstone for this team. And I think you need to get Zion out of there if you can because of the injury issues, and it's just time to move on and just put the ball in Derek Queen's hands. But hey, pretty phenomenal, huh? Miami Heat, 0-3 over the past week, 14-10, kind of the classic Heat team, capable but coasting a little. Norman Powell's been great, which is awesome. Tyler Herro's kind of dealing with a little bit of injury. I don't know. It's just a weird thing with the Heat. I've been seeing rumors of Ja Morant potentially getting traded to the Heat, which feels like oil and water. I don't see that happening unless Ja Morant is willing to completely change his mentality. But if that's the case, hey, it'd be fun and interesting. But what do you give up for Ja at that point? Because you don't want to give up Tyler Herro. Anyway, Heat kind of regressing to the mean. Like I said with the Raptors, still a very good team. Just kind of a tough week for them. Lastly, Utah Jazz giving up 129 points per night over the past week. Defense is horrendous because you have Keontae George and you have Ace Bailey. And you have, as much as I love him, Walter Clayton Jr. I talked about Walter Clayton Jr. yesterday on the roundup. He's been awesome offensively. Defensively, the jury's still out. Lauri Markkanen's still great, but what you going to do? They're 1-2 in the past week, -17 margin, 8-15 on the season. Eventually, Danny Ainge is going to trade Lauri Markkanen and the tank's really going to start. I mean, if you're the Utah Jazz, you want a top 3 pick. You got DeBonsa, Boozer, you got Peterson. You've got, even in the top 5, you got other guys outside that who are phenomenal. It's a deep class. So if you're the Jazz, I mean, you kind of want to tank at this point. As much as the NBA wouldn't like you to admit that, you kind of want to do it. Okay, moving on to some actual rumors. Giannis, reportedly, if he gets traded, will not get an exclusive negotiating window with the Knicks, as he did in August. So what does that mean? That means that the Knicks probably won't get Giannis, in my opinion, because I don't think they have the best offer. The Raptors would probably be interested. The Rockets, I've seen reports. I hope Şengün's not included. I've seen Hawks, but are they really going to include Jalen Johnson? Because I don't think the Bucks will want Trae Young. Yeah, I mean, Giannis is phenomenal. He's dealing with a calf strain right now. I just don't know who's going to be able to offer the package that the Bucks want. OKC, ironically, would be able to have the best case, but that would ruin the balance of the NBA. Outside of that, I'm going to make this real quick. Only one player who I want to note that did terrible this week, one game specifically, Bruce Brown, cardio game. On the 7th, 0 points in 20 minutes, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 0 turnovers, the fabled cardio game. And there have only been 17 players in NBA history to record that stat line plus 0 free throw attempts in over 20 minutes a game. Strangely, 2 have come in the past week. Keon Ellis was the other for the Kings. But hey, we love a good Tony Snell game, right? Okay, I know that's been a lot all over the place, but I want to get into some Cavaliers basketball with our guy, Danny Cunningham. Let's get it. And we're back with Danny Cunningham of The Inside Shot and Locked on Cavs. Danny, how are we doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Been targeting you for a while. Follow your stuff on Substack. And, I've been really excited to kind of talk about some Cavaliers basketball because things are certainly an interesting season. I was looking at Cleveland's weather over the next week, and you guys have some pretty chilly days, which is pretty fitting because things have gone a little bit cold for the Cavs over the past few weeks.
Yeah, the weather and Cleveland shooting from beyond the arc right now, I think, are pretty hand in hand. It has been I know technically it's still fall until December 21st, but it has been a very, very cold one in Cleveland. We've had several days where it's in the low 20s and it's miserable and it's frigid and nobody wants to be outside, and it feels a lot like how the Cavs are shooting the basketball from beyond the arc. Like they're 22nd in 3-point shooting after being the number 2 team last year, and just like it's cold everywhere right now, man.
Yeah, I feel you. Looking at all the stats, it's not very pretty outside of Sam Merrill still does his job, which I'm a big Sam Merrill fan. Love
he's
that
healthy,
guy.
But I mean that the hand injuries cost him like 2 weeks at this point, and
that's
all
true.
Those things matter.
That's true, and injuries are kind of the tail of the tape for especially another guy, Darius Garland, who we'll get into a little bit later. But let's just open with a little more positivity because we're going to have a lot to talk about in terms of the weirdness of the season. But what is one thing you've liked from the Cavs so far this season? I understand that, it's a weird start, but what have you liked?
I think Donovan Mitchell is the place to start here. So he was first team All-NBA last year, as you know. He had one of the best seasons of his career last year, and I think that first team All-NBA honor was deserved, and I think it was partially because the Cavs won 64 games, and that type of winning tends to get rewarded when it comes to voting on these things. And this year, I think Donovan has been a much better player than he was last year. If you look at not only what he's doing on volume, and yes, he's playing more minutes this year, partially because of some of the injuries that we've already briefly touched upon, but also because the Cavs last year won so many games by like 15 or 20 points that there were a lot of fourth quarters where he just didn't play. But this year, Donovan has, I think, been the best he's ever been. I think he's scoring at a volume that he's never scored at before, and he's doing it in the most efficient manner that he's ever done it. He's taking a career high 10.5 3-pointers per game right now. He's not quite at his career high in terms of percentage, but he's shooting almost 39% on 10.4 threes per game, which is really, really good for that type of volume. He's shooting over 50% from the floor for the first time in his career. His effective field goal percentage is at a career high. Like, he's been, I think, the most complete version of himself that he's ever been, and that has been, I think, the best part of the Cavs season because, as we sit here and record this, they're 14-11, and I think it's a little scary to think about where they'd be without Donovan Mitchell. Like, if you look at last year's team and you just say, okay, remove Donovan Mitchell from the equation, do they win 64 games? Absolutely not. They're not close to that. But last year's team without Donovan Mitchell, probably still a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. 100%. This year's team without Donovan Mitchell is nowhere, like they are the Charlotte Hornets, considering all the other injuries they've had this year. So he has been, I think, just absolutely fantastic. And like, if you want to talk bright spots, that to me is the brightest spot. Like, he is, I certainly think, trending towards being a top 5 MVP finisher and a first team All-NBA guy yet again.
Yeah, that would be 100% my bright spot for the team. I have his stats here, like you said, over 30 points per game, 5.5 assists, 4.8 rebounds. And one of the things that's really impressed me the most is with the injury struggles that Darius Garland has had, you get to see a lot more of the Donovan Mitchell pick and roll operation, which it was always really fun to watch in Utah. It was really fun to watch when Garland was out. Of course, Garland being out, he posed some problems, but he's above 80th percentile in pick and roll efficiency right now. He looks phenomenal. He's pretty effective around the rim. Like you said, that 38.5% 3-point percentage with the difficulty of shots that he takes, especially off the dribble. I agree. He's easily the most complete player out of all the previous Donovan Mitchells that we've seen, right? And I kind of have a bad tendency, and I think this is a very, I think a lot of people, from what I've seen in the space, we talk about guards that are really good scorers, and we talk about guys like Jalen Brunson because he's in a big market, right? We talk about James Harden even when he's with the Clippers or when he was with the Sixers, right? And I feel like Donovan Mitchell has almost gotten the short end of the stick from the media just because he's been surrounded by such good talent, right? A little bit different this season, but people look at it, it's like, oh, you have Evan Mobley, you have Darius Garland, you have Jared Allen was looking at an all-star at some point. And now, I mean, when you look at his stats and when you look at what he's doing, if the Cavaliers end up making it to the playoffs and potentially a higher seed than where they are now, you have to put him in top 5 MVP conversation just because of what he's doing.
Right. And I do think that they will, like, as we sit here and record this, I believe they're in 8th in the East. And because we are recording this during the Miami-Orlando NBA Cup game, one of those teams is going to lose, and that team's going to have the same record as the Cavs, and the Cavs would, I believe, jump ahead of either of those teams because of the tiebreakers. But, like, their positioning in the East to me right now doesn't really matter. Like, is it concerning that they're currently in the play-in if the season ended today? Of course, but like the season doesn't end today. It doesn't end until April. Like, I would still think of the Cavs as a team that should finish with one of the 3 best records in basketball, or not in basketball, in the Eastern Conference. Maybe they don't quite get to the 1 seed, but like they should still have one of the best records in the conference. And I think if and when that does become the case, like Donovan's going to get talked about in the light that his play deserves to be talked about, because it's not only all those other things, but like he's also getting to the free throw line more than he's ever done in his career too. And like those things to me all add up to a guy having one of the best seasons in the NBA right now.
Yeah, 100%. I have some other bright spots in my notes outside of Donovan Mitchell. Of course, Donovan Mitchell is, 1A up here. Like I said, Sam Merrill still does his job, but the injuries have been kind of a factor. The team is top 10 in offensive rating, which is something that I feel like is very dissonant with their current record. I believe they're 11th in net rating as well. Mostly because of Donovan Mitchell, but also because Evan Mobley is still really great defensively. He's really great offensively. I think he's taken a bit of a plateau this season, which we could talk about a little bit later. And most positively, like you said, season doesn't end today, and that's a really good thing because they have the 5th lowest strength of schedule the rest of the way. So things may ease up, especially as guys get more healthy. Jalen Tyson has been awesome, 46.7% from 3. I mean, you love a guy that can just catch and shoot and doesn't mind playing a role. Yeah, like you said, the Cavs look fundamentally good. I think a lot of recency bias is there in terms of like that Warriors loss was really bad, the Pat Spencer game, which shout out to Pat Spencer. But yeah, it's a very, things could look up given the fact that their strength of schedule is weaker and guys will get into their roles more.
Right. And I mean, you bring up the strength of schedule thing, and we're recording this during like a week off for all intents and purposes. They lost to the Warriors on Saturday. They don't play again until Friday, and their next 6 games are against Washington, Charlotte, Chicago again, Charlotte again, and then New Orleans. And that gets them to the Christmas Day game against the New York Knicks. So like if this team can figure out how to really rectify some of its problems over the course of these next few days, because the other aspect of it, like they've played a lot of games, they've had a lot of back-to-backs, they've had 2 stretches of 5 games in 7 days already. So I think rest, a little bit of practice time, getting healthier, like all of those things, and then having a favorable schedule coming right out of it where they can have the opportunity to rack up some wins. Like if all goes well, we should be looking at them heading to New York for Christmas Day, riding a 6-game winning streak. And I think part of that makes that Warriors loss a little bit more frustrating, because if they would have just taken care of business, you'd say, okay, well, it's an 8-game winning streak now going to New York for a Christmas Day game. And that has a little bit more juice because of it. So I think those things certainly matter, but the way I look at it now is like, yeah, there are positives. And Donovan Mitchell, you brought up Jalen Tyson. Like I think some of the other younger guys too, the fact that Naquan Tomlin looks like an NBA player, Tyrese Proctor, who they picked 49th overall in June, looks like an NBA player immediately. I think Craig Porter Jr. has taken a step forward from where he was last year. And like, those are the guys that on the Cavs roster were supposed to be like 10 or 11 through 15. And instead, they have sort of been like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that the fact that those guys look the part is good. But I think that when those guys can slide back to where they're supposed to be, like the team will be better for it. But also knowing that if and when they do need those guys in high leverage moments, they can trust them. And I think that is one of the silver linings, if you will, to come out of the first 25 games for the Cavs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big Craig Porter Jr. guy. Loved watching him last season in limited minutes. I mean, he was one of the most efficient per minute guys in the league. Love the guy. But moving on to things that aren't as positive, what is one thing? I know we could point out many things and we likely will, but what is the one thing that you don't like the most as of where the Cavs are right now?
Can I give you two? Because there are, I can't pick one. One of them is not super quantifiable, and that would be their compete level, their effort level, their spirit, their energy. I think that's been down far too frequently. Like, you go back and look at their last week, and I don't necessarily think that was the case or why they lost to the Warriors. I think the fact that they missed 70 shots in a basketball game more so is why they lost to the Warriors. But go back and look at their loss they had to the Portland Trailblazers. The effort level was not where it needs to be for an NBA game. Go back and look to their loss at home against the Boston Celtics a few days before that game against the Blazers. Their effort, their energy level, their spirit was not what is required to win an NBA game. And I think had this Cavs team played in their first 25 games with the proper spirit, energy level, compete level, whatever you want to call that, their record is better than it is right now. They win a lot of those games if they just play a little bit harder and don't look like a team that expects to be given these games, or maybe more accurately expects to just be able to win them on talent alone. Like, they are 14-11 for the most part because of how talented they are, not because they've played well. And the other thing is the 3-point shooting as a team. We mentioned at the top, they are 22nd so far this year, Jacob, in 3-point percentage. Last year they were second. And they take more threes than anybody in basketball. They take over 44 3-pointers per game. That is something that, like, if you're going to take that many, you need to be able to make them. And Donovan has shot the ball well. Evan Mobley has shot the ball well. Jalen Tyson, who you mentioned, has shot the ball very well. But overall, there are only 5 guys. It's those 3 plus Sam Merrill and Craig Porter Jr. There are only 5 guys that are shooting 35% or better on threes this year on the Cavs. Last year, if you take away Jared Allen, who does not shoot 3-pointers, like, he will take less than 10 for the year, so his percentage is irrelevant to this. If you take away Allen out of their top 11 guys last year, all of them shot 35% or better. And this year, only 5 of them are. So that's a big difference as to why their offense, which was the number 2 most efficient offense in NBA history last year and the number 1 offense in the league. That's a big reason why it went from that to, I believe they are 9th or 10th in offense right now, and their offensive rating is down roughly 7 points per 100 possessions from what it was last year. And I think a lot of it gets back to shooting. Like, they are shooting 6 percentage points worse on guarded catch and shoot 3-point opportunities, according to Synergy. They're shooting 5 percentage points worse, roughly, on unguarded catch and shoot opportunities, according to Synergy. Like, I think there will be some positive regression, if you will, to maybe not being an elite level shooting team, but they're not going to be a bad 3-point shooting team forever.
You'd be average.
But those two things I look at and say, well, that is what I really don't like about this team so far, is that they've missed a lot of shots. And when they have missed those shots, and I do think these two things are connected, but when they have had those bad nights offensively, they've allowed it to affect their effort level on defense.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, especially as the Cavaliers currently give up the 10th most points in fast break / transition. And a lot of that, like you said, has to do with the effort level. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they're missing a lot of shots and, a lot of them go long. They have numbers, that sort of thing. In terms of the 3-point shooting, DeAndre Hunter can't shoot for some reason this year. 31% from 3, barely over 31%. Darius Garland, as we mentioned, the 3-point shooting is definitely not there. I don't know if that's because he's not setting up properly, because that toe injury still seems to be bothering him. But I mean, the shooting across the board has just been bad. And it even goes to the free throw shooting. I mean, the free throw shooting has been 25th in the league.
Right.
And It's bad. And if you're a team that is going to have Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, who, Donovan Mitchell's drawing a lot of free throws, he's doing well on his own. Darius Garland, who, when he was embracing contact, was a decent free throw drawer for his size. DeAndre Hunter's a big body. When you have guys like that, you have to be able to make your free throws. And it's not like you can afford, it's not like you're the Celtics, where the Celtics take tons of threes and they can make them, and so they can afford not to make their free throws. But the Cavs, if they're not going to make their threes, they've got to be able to knock down easy points.
Right. That is 100% true. And I mean, the thing is, they have good shooters. Like Evan Mobley is, I think, the guy that has taken the biggest step back at the line. His 3-point percentage is in the same ballpark it was last year on a higher volume. So I think that is certainly acceptable, but he's shooting roughly 10% worse on his free throws. And he went through, I thought, like a week period where it kind of looked like he had the yips at the line. Like he developed this hitch in his shot, and he has been better since then. And I think recovered from it, but he went through a stretch where it was just like, there was a lot of angst in the arena when he would step to the line because people didn't believe he was going to make those shots. And Donovan is about where he's been. Darius, for the 3-point stuff, I'm willing to give him a pass. Like I think that will be rectified soon. I thought that even the last game they played against the Warriors, he had a terrible game in terms of like shooting from the floor and stuff. But I actually thought he looked like Darius Garland. Like he moved, I thought, better than he's moved in any other game. And I thought that was a positive to take away from it. So I do think a lot of the shooting will come around. And like, it's not nothing that Sam Merrill has missed a bunch of time because of a hand injury. And you don't know what he's going to be when he gets back with that hand injury. But he is, I think, the best pure shooter on this team, maybe the second best pure shooter on this team behind Darius Garland. And then Max Strus is also somebody they count on to really fill up that role. So I think that as they get healthier, like, it will improve, but they need to just be better shooting in all areas, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The shooting's the big thing. I was also, and I'd like to get your take on this because I haven't watched enough of his individual minutes to have a clear take on this. But one of the things that I was surprised by is Jared Allen is averaging under 1 block a game. Do you think the defense has taken a step back from him this season?
No, I think that defensively, the bigs have been fine for the most part. I think what the Cavs' defensive issues have been are their point of attack breakdowns. Like, they've not been good enough on the perimeter. And I think that has put Jarrett and Evan to a different degree in some uncomfortable positions defensively. And like, I think that's a big reason why the Cavs defensive rebounding rate is low. Cause like, they're not a great defensive rebounding team anyways, but when you add in the fact that their bigs have to step into uncomfortable positions, not to, block shots, but to just even contest them and make them not free runs at the basket, those missed shots, instead of being defensive rebounds by the bigs, turn into offensive rebounds and easy baskets for other guys. So I don't think that either big has been bad defensively. Like, have they been necessarily the best they've ever been? Maybe not. But I don't put that on them. Like, I think that's more of a perimeter issue than it is an issue actually near the basket. I know that the numbers say it's near the basket, but my eye test tells me guys are just getting into the paint far too easily. And that's not on Jared Allen. That's not on Evan Mobley. That's on guys like DeAndre Hunter, who I think has not been good enough defensively. It's on other guys on the wing and the perimeter that allow that to happen.
Okay. Awesome. See, that's why we have experts like you who actually watch all the games, It gives a better perspective than the stats. Okay. So we've kind of touched on all the strengths and weaknesses. What would you say is to blame more for the team's struggles thus far? Is it the injuries and therefore the inconsistency in lineups, or is it more of a systems issue for this season? Or is it both?
I think it's injuries. Because I do think that there's a certain sense of belief that the Cavs can beat anybody when they're fully healthy. And I think that when they're not fully healthy, they go through these periods where they're just like waiting to be fully healthy. And that has led to, I think, some lower effort games at times, lower spirited games at times. So I think of that as a health issue. Now, it's not an excuse. They should be better. They should be mentally stronger through these instances and still find ways to play as hard as they can. But I look at this and say, if the Cavs were fully healthy, if Darius Garland didn't have his toe surgery in June, and that toe was just not an issue, if Max Strus didn't have foot surgery in August and he was just healthy and not an issue, if Sam Merrill didn't have the hand injury that's now cost him around 2.5 weeks, if Jared Allen didn't have a fractured finger, if all of these things, if DeAndre Hunter didn't miss a week and a half with a knee bruise, if all of these things don't happen, and listen, nobody is fully healthy in the NBA, right? Like,
no, especially not this season.
Right. Nobody's fully healthy. But if this Cavs team were fully healthy, would they be 14-11? I seriously doubt it. I think they would have a much better record than they do. I think they'd be somewhere along the lines of 18-7 through 25 games or 19-6. Like, that's the kind of team I think they ultimately will be. I think the slow start is partially due to them, but partially also outside of their control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the injuries this season across the board for everybody have been a mess. I mean, you look at Giannis with the calf strain, Franz Wagner, ankle sprain, Ja Morant, I believe his is also a calf strain. Hamstring strains are becoming very popular. Strains across the board are kind of really bothering everybody. But like you said, the Cavs kind of came into the season with a lot of these injuries. It's less of a bad luck situation versus a you got to ramp these guys up during the season. Not everybody can be the OKC Thunder and afford to have their second best player be out and still win like 27 games to 1 or 2. But that being said, assuming, like you said, the perimeter defense has been a problem. Like I said, the fast break issues have been a problem on the defensive end. 3-point shooting has been a problem right now, which you expect to regress to the mean just statistically. But the trade deadline's in 2 months. And of course, December 15th is when a lot of guys become eligible to be traded. Some of the guys are January, I believe it's either 5th or 15th.
15th.
15th, yes. So everybody will pretty much be available to be traded in less than a month. If it were tomorrow, or the trade deadline were tomorrow, and everybody's available, assuming everybody you would think would be on the market would be available, what moves would you want to see the team make? Because they can't do tons of stuff. Of note, they're above the second apron by $22 million, and they likely will be so next season as well. But that being said, what would you want to see the Cavs do, if anything, to be fair?
Nothing. I think that this, could you make a move here or there on the margin? Sure. But I think it's unfair to look at this group and say, okay, well, all of this needs to be changed when they've not played a game healthy. It's unfair to me from a roster building standpoint, to judge the roster that has not had instances where the pieces are in the places they're supposed to be. And it's not like they're necessarily trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with all this stuff, because that's not the case. But I think a lot of these, Lonzo Ball has shot the ball terribly so far this year. But how does Lonzo Ball look sliding 1 or 2 spots down because Darius Garland can play 33 minutes a night? Guys like Jalen Tyson, who has been awesome, but he's playing almost 30 minutes a night. How good would Jalen Tyson look if he's able to maybe be a little bit better on the defensive end of the floor because he's only playing 20 minutes a night? Dean Wade, maybe he's not in the rotation if the Cavs are fully healthy. I look at all of this and say, it is unfair to me to look at, does this team have weaknesses? Sure. But it's a little unfair for me to say they need to trade X, Y, and Z when we've not necessarily seen X, Y, or Z in the position that they're supposed to actually be in. And if we see the Cavs fully healthy and things are like this, then I think it's fair to revisit the conversation. But I think 25 games in without knowing who this Cavs team actually is, it's hard for me to say they need to go out and make moves, especially when they're as restricted as they are because of their stance as a second apron team.
Yeah. Yeah. A reminder for any listeners that aren't super familiar with the second apron, of course, we hear about it a lot. Pretty much what that means is if you try to trade a player, you cannot aggregate multiple players to get a single player back. And I believe vice versa as well. A couple other salary restrictions in that case. I mean, if you're in second apron a couple years in a row, there's some restrictions, but overall it does limit a lot of what you're able to do. There's going to be a lot of conversations about that, I'm sure, in the next CBA negotiations, just because a lot of guys are getting limited in free agency because of it, but that's another topic entirely. What we've kind of talked about this throughout the show, but what is, because in the NBA change happens really quickly, and especially now because of financial restrictions. I mean, you saw the Celtics, Jason Tatum gets injured, they blow everything up just to get some, financial leeway, trade Porzingis, trade Drew Holiday, all that stuff. what is the floor for this Cavs team to not blow things up? And when I mean blow things up, I don't mean trade everybody, but make a major change fundamentally to the roster. How good do they have to be to meet that mark?
They have to make the finals, in my opinion. If this is a group that does not get to the NBA finals as a fully healthy group, then I think it's grounds to make some changes. And I'm not saying trade Donovan Mitchell. I'm not saying trade Evan Mobley. I wouldn't trade Darius Garland either, but I think anything after that should be up for debate. Like they should be open for discussion as far as that stuff goes, because it's not the first go around for this group, right? Like,
no,
this will be the fourth, because listen, like, I know they're in the play right now. The Cavs will be a playoff team. They'll be a top 4 seed. They'll probably be a top 2 or 3 seed. And this will be the fourth playoff run that this core group of guys between Donovan, Evan, Darius, and Jarrett Allen have had together. And they have grown. Evan's gotten a lot better. I think Donovan's gotten a lot better. I think Darius is a better basketball player than he was back then. So they have grown and stuff. But at a certain point, if it doesn't work, you might need to change things. And yeah, there are excuses that we could make. Like, the first year was a failure against the New York Knicks, losing that series. The second year, they won a playoff series. They beat Orlando, and they lost to the eventual champs in the Boston Celtics. Like, I think people call that a failure. I don't look at it that way. I think there was no shame in losing that series to a team that they were never going to beat. And then last year was absolutely 100%. Was it maybe a little injury driven? Sure, but it was 100% a failure. So if the Cavs don't reach their goals of at least getting to the finals, now beating Oklahoma City, a very tall task. And if they lose that series in like 6 or 7 games, I think then you would say, okay, let's run this back. Like, let's see if we can climb this mountain. Like, there would be no shame in that happening, given how historically good Oklahoma City looks right now. But anything short of that, it leads me to think that there could and should be change, because then it's like, all right, we've gotten there and this has not worked. But if they don't even get there, then I think almost anything outside of Donovan and Evan Mobley should be on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if they're a top 3 seed, most likely they're going to be playing some collection of Heat, maybe the Sixers, maybe if the Hawks jump a couple spots, although the Hawks love to be 500, and right now they're above 500, so maybe they'll regress to the mean. Magic are in there on the way. You'd have to get past probably one of the Pistons, Knicks, or Celtics. But like you said, this Cavs team, when healthy, in theory, like I don't think you could say to anybody, oh, the Pistons, or if they face the Pistons in the playoffs, the Cavs are definitely going to get beat. Like, that's not feasible. Like, the Pistons are number one in the East, but they don't have the experience and the talent level.
Well, and like, the Cavs went to Detroit on the second night of a back-to-back earlier this year and beat the Pistons by 30. Like, that's not it. The Pistons have, this group in Detroit has, I think, beat the Cavs one time in its entire existence, basically. And that, like, I get that the Pistons are not who they were 2 years ago, obviously. They're a very good team, but like, I still look at this and say, if anybody other than the Cavs or New York Knicks came out of the Eastern Conference, I'd be very surprised. And like, that's not
100%
shade to Detroit, but I just don't think that they're a true competitor. I think that they did their job and took advantage of a very light early schedule, and they're a good team, but I don't think that they're a great team.
Right. And same with the Celtics. I mean, the Celtics, if Jason Tatum comes back, we have no idea what he looks like. But just from a sheer talent level and from what this team should be, you have hopefully healthy Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, DeAndre Hunter hopefully finds a shot. In the East, it's very tough to see somebody beat the team outright without something going wrong, just because the talent level, right? So yeah, I agree. I'm slightly. I guess I'm not surprised by the finals floor. It just feels like a really tall task, just because of you need everything to go right, and so far, thus things have gone wrong with injury.
Right, but this was a team that won 64 games last year. Like, getting to the finals was the expectation last postseason, and they came up woefully short. They're not going to win as many regular season games this year. Obviously, they only have room for 7 more losses this year to do that, but they have those same expectations. Like, them taking a step back in the regular season, I think, was always going to happen this year, but they need to take a step forward in the postseason. That's ultimately how they'll be judged. Like, if they win 53 games this year in the regular season, but make the finals, success.
Because the East is so strange because any point you're in the playoffs, things are going to open up in the East. It's not like the West where, you're going to have to go through OKC. You're going to have to go through Denver. You're going to go through everybody. If they just get to the playoffs, things don't really matter. Like you said, they'll probably be a top 3, top 4 seed when it's all said and done.
Exactly.
But it's almost irrelevant, to be fair.
Like this was a group that was always going to be judged on what they did in the postseason. It's not that the regular season doesn't matter, and I don't think they've taken the regular season seriously enough, but and I
think you could say that about a lot of teams, to be fair.
Sure, but if they get to the finals, everyone's going to forget they were 14-11.
100%. I mean, it's the Miami Heat syndrome. I mean, you kind of coast a little bit in the regular season when they had Jimmy, and then you get to the finals, nobody cares. But anyway, that's all the questions I have for you. But I do have one more thing for you that I didn't let you know about prior to the episode. It's something I do with every guest, and that is some Cleveland Cavaliers trivia.
Ooh,
I have 5 questions here. The current record for the number of questions that somebody has gotten is 3.
Okay.
So that is the current record. Nobody has gotten all 5 because I generally make these somewhat difficult. But the Cavs. We'll see how you do.
Well, let's hope I do.
I might go far back for some of these. First one. What year was the Cleveland Cavaliers created?
1970 was the first season.
Yes, sir. Ding, ding, ding. 1-0. The last 2 Cavaliers sophomores, and when I say Cavaliers sophomores, I mean second-year players, to record a 20-point game on 70% field goal or better are Jalen Tyson this season and Evan Mobley. Who was the player to do that before them?
Oh, my goodness. Let's see. Would it have been Darius Garland?
No, that is a good guess. It is actually Isaac Okoro.
Oh, okay.
Which I wouldn't have thought of Isaac Okoro for this one.
Well, that would also make sense given that he was a year younger or a year later in the draft than Darius.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Because before it was Darius.
I don't think of him as but Darius did do it, so that makes me feel a little bit better about my answer, if Darius did do it.
I mean, Isaac Okoro on the Cavs sometimes to me now just kind of feels like a fever dream. I see him on the Bulls, it feels even more like a fever dream, but whatever. Number 3. Evan Mobley is on track to play 78 games this season. Who was the last player on the Cavs to play at least that many games?
Jared Allen played all 82 games last year.
Yes, sir. Okay, so
and
2 for 3.
To him, I believe George Niang would have been the answer.
That is correct. Wow, I could give you bonus points for that. Dang. I'll keep you 2 for 3 for now. Sam Merrill is averaging over 44% from three-point range this season and shot 37% from deep last season. Who holds the Cavaliers record for the most seasons with at least 37% three-point?
Oof. I'm going to guess Mark Price.
Yes. Do you know how many seasons? This is just for bonus.
I don't know how many seasons. I don't know, and I know it's on a lower volume too because they just didn't shoot threes at the same volume back then when he was playing. Obviously, he was a great shooter, but I don't know how many seasons.
7 seasons.
It's pretty good.
7 seasons. It's a lot. Okay. Dang. 3 for 4. Last one. Which Cavaliers head coach has the highest winning percentage in franchise history?
Is there a minimum number of games here?
No.
Is it Mike Brown?
No, Mike Brown is 3rd.
Lenny Wilkins?
No, it's crazy. Here's what's crazy. Kenny Atkinson right now, 72.9%. Because that's why I said no minimum. David Blatt was second, 67.5%. It's kind of a trick question,
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, 3 out of 5. But I mean, I might just give you bonus points for the George Niang one on the Jared Allen question. But dang, man, you know your team better than most people on this podcast do.
Well, I would hope so. I'm around them every day.
Hey, I mean, that's the benefit, right? But some of the historic ones are tough, especially when I pull out StatHead and it's like, hey, how many players have done 20-point game on 70% shooting in their second year in the league, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That one's in the weeds a little bit.
Oh, yeah. It's a little bit in the weeds. But, hey, you were right about Darius Garland doing it at one point. Just Isaac Okoro kind of slips in there. But,
yeah,
hey, man, it's been awesome having you on. Get to talk some Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. Where can people find you? I already mentioned that you're on Substack, The Inside Shot. Go follow you there. Where else are you?
Yeah, so Locked On Cavs, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else. Also, you can find me on Twitter at RealDCunningham or on Blue Sky at Danny Cunningham over there.
Awesome. You heard the man. Go follow him. And this has been a fun time, man. I'll have to have you back some point later in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. We're out.